Discretion is advised.
Some viewers may find this disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
For a rather long break in viewing. So over to Ben.
Hello there. Hello everybody, and hello. This is the Ben&Grem Show, isn't it, Grem?
It is.
Yeah. And it has been, I would say, probably a year now, at least a year since we last went live.
Wrong.
It's been apparently been 4 or 5 months when we've had nothing.
At least 4 or 5 months.
More than that
yeah.
now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's probably about 4 or 5 months ish, maybe more.
But
yeah.
no fault of yours.
Anybody's really.
Well, I've had a lot of personal issues that I've had to deal with, and it's not been very happy. Life isn't meant to be 100% happy. But luckily Ben was there to help me through that. That's the reason why we really didn't do any shows. I started to feel better, and it was all set up to go, and then something would happen, and my mood would be right down again. But I'm under specialist help at the moment. I'm showing them how to work with mental health.
Yeah, and it affects everybody really, doesn't it, Graham? I mean,
family.
Yeah, you least expect it. It hits you hard. So no one's immune to mental health concerns, issues, or otherwise. Wouldn't you say? I would say.
No one is. And a lot with depression, people do need to stop saying they are depressed until they've actually been diagnosed with it.
Yeah.
Because what you probably got is just stress related depression, which is a stage beforehand, or 3-4 stages beforehand.
It sort of starts off, doesn't it? Like, I suppose they say, isn't it? It's anxiety and stress induces long-term effects of depression, and so it's like stages, isn't it? Would you say? Yeah.
You basically react slower with everything.
Yeah.
And then make wrong decisions. Then you've got to try and problem solve to make things better, and you end up making it a lot worse. And I know that myself. Witnessed it so many times in the past 9 months. It's been a roller coaster ride, but not the Ben&Grem. So we got together recently.
Yeah.
And we were discussing about doing some little segments, and then picking them together through editing, and have that as a Wednesday. This is non-alcoholic.
You started already.
Non-alcoholic
Cranberry juice.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got one as well, guys.
And we're not advertising anyone. I think I covered it up.
No.
Anyway, we've got to edit this anyway, so we can believe it.
Hey, yeah. I mean, Britvic.
Whoops.
I've gone and said it now anyway. So it has been, hasn't it? It's been a bumpy road for you and myself, really. Really similar sort of things. I think times are hard, which will bring us to our general topics in a moment as to why we feel that times are hard, never getting any easier. You're absolutely right, Graham. Life is difficult, and it's how, like the old saying goes, it's what you make it.
People are screaming into telephones, papers are flying everywhere. You look around the New York Stock Exchange as chaos ensues. Two people run directly into each other, sending the memos and sales orders they're carrying into the air. The important documents float down to the ground like delicate snowflakes, only to be trampled a moment later by businessmen running for the door. All is lost, someone yells. This is the end, a banker shouts from the mob trying to escape the mayhem. Black Thursday is upon you. The Great Depression is in full force.
But sometimes it's out of your control, I think, isn't it?
Yes, most certainly. As long as you've got your loved ones around you and family. I say loved ones and family because friends can be family as well. That's what I mean by that. Sounds better if I say it again, so we will do something with it, won't we, Ben?
Yeah, well, it all gets used, snips and chops and stuff. We'll find. But Grem, it has been a while, and never late than never, because here we are. It's another show, Ben&Grem Show. It's not live, Grem, today, as you're all fully aware. As you're watching it now, you will notice, although you can comment. Now, this is the other thing, Grem, because it doesn't have to be live, okay, for you to comment and have some input. Obviously, we can't engage with you one-to-one under these circumstances, but of course, you can leave your comments and leave your expressions towards any of the discussions we bring up in the show. So we are saying hello, and we're pleased, aren't we, that we're back, and it has been a while. And
we are going to make extra strength here. We're going to make sure it happens.
Absolutely.
There's definitely going to be a Sunday night live, and could be a Wednesday and a Thursday edition, which could be pre-recorded. One of them might not be.
Yeah.
Depends on the date, month.
Again, it's all subjects.
To celebrate.
Absolutely, it's all subjects, as you know, as you've watched before in the past. It's all subjects to do with common affairs or general affairs of today, and maybe even yesterday, because some things are still ongoing. And this is the thing, you see, the Ben&Grem Show can never die, Grem, because quite honestly, all the while we have news, there's something to talk about, wouldn't you say?
Yes. Yeah.
And so for that reason, it can never grow old. However, we can. And as you can see, the camera certainly is doing us both a huge favour.
Yes, we're looking quite
more so me
tonight, aren't we?
Well, I'd say you are, mate. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I actually cut my own hair, getting off the subject a little bit. Twice now. I've refused to pay £12 for a haircut.
Mm.
Yeah, well, I used to pay £8, but then I would give them £3 as a tip. I can't. Pound's a bit cheap, but I can't afford to go over £10. You'd basically be paying £15, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, it's tough times, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
Everything's gone up, hasn't it?
Cutting myself.
Gone
a bit wrong.
No, I don't think it has, actually. From here, I can see it looks rather straight. But it's not recommended, folks. If you happen to want to save some money and you do want to cut your hair, as a little personal disclaimer, please do take care, because once you've cut it, it can't go back.
Well, I've managed to sort it. Oh, God. There's a good little camera. No, it's the other way. That's it. Because what I've done, pardon me, here.
Yeah.
I've gone scissors. I've gone like this. Of course, this one is short hair here anyway, so it went extra short. So I had to make adjustments here. Got a couple of gappy bits of it. Done all right, and I trimmed my beard, and I've dyed my hair and beard, and the camera tonight is not showing any grey hairs, Frank.
That's a bit smooth, isn't it? A bit sharp, Grem. Yeah, we have got some new technology, and it was needed, because we did have a huge array of stuff, didn't we, in previous shows, which unfortunately, due to various different reasons, we no longer have that stuff. However, the show will continue and is continuing, and as you know, this is our first show. And
we would like your opinion if you feel the quality that we're using at the moment is okay.
Yeah, of course.
We will be investing, as Ben was just about to say, so you can continue with that one.
But yeah, I think in the meantime, it's a relatively acceptable quality. I think fair to say for the viewers' purposes, for the moment, and as we will carry on. Grem, so what are we going to discuss? Because it has been a few months, and despite that, obviously, in the meantime, and it's fair to say, a lot of things have happened. Some things are still ongoing from when last time we did a show, and
yes,
have probably escalated somewhat in the way that they have manifested, should we say. If we talk of COVID, certainly. But there's other things going on as well. And
Brexit. Brexit is back in the news now, people.
Are we leaving, Mr. Black? Are we leaving, Mr. Black? It's all right.
We fought against big politics. We fought against lies, corruption and deceit. And today, honesty, decency and belief in nation, I think now is going to win. Let June the 23rd go down in our history as our Independence Day.
amazingly,
There may be a chance that they could activate Article 16. There's a couple of sentences that basically throws a great big spanner in the works for all our cousins and
we're talking about the French.
and the others.
Oh, generally,
Yeah,
the
everyone.
European states.
Well,
Well,
it's not their fault, is it? It's their
no.
leaders' fault.
no. I mean, what's clear, going by since our last show, what we know, of course, with the European Union, is that there are growing tensions, Graham, isn't there, with a number of different nations within the European membership, and that be it, for example, the Italians, the Polish. They are certainly questioning their viability to remain within it, in the club, in the European Union. So the Polish Prime Minister has been very vocal recently, wouldn't you say?
Oh yes, they're getting quite close to calling it a day. as
Whole
well.
exit, couldn't it be?
Who will blink first? Poland and the EU are playing chicken, and the fate of both is at stake. This week, the European Court of Justice slapped its highest ever fine, €1 million a day, on Warsaw after the country's constitutional tribunal ruled that the Polish constitution takes precedence over the EU treaty. The head of the EU Commission says the fine is a legitimate response to a ruling that challenges the very basis of the European legal order. Blackmail, says Poland's Prime Minister Morawiecki. It's only the latest in ongoing tensions that include security on Poland's easternmost border, where guards are accused of illegally pushing back undocumented migrants trafficked into Europe by Belarus. Our topic on To The Point: Europe's next domino. Will Pole exit follow Brexit?
Yeah.
And it's not going to be the last, is it? I think, as many political commentators had said, that once Brexit had been achieved, and many of the other EU 27 were going to look upon that and say, well, they've done it, we can do it. And I think actually,
We
in a
can do
sense,
it.
yeah,
We're an amazing nation. We've always been able to pick ourselves up and dust us. There's
Absolutely.
only a certain criteria of people in this country that don't seem to like the country. Maybe
I think
disagree with some parts.
maybe they got a different way of showing their love for the country. But I think it's I think the reason for why, in my mind now, Graham, I think the reason for why there are individuals maybe that don't support Brexit or have a different view upon those that supported Brexit, they look at things differently in the way that they believe nationalism to be a sort of different structure as to how we see it.
Yeah, well, you talk about nationalism and then you think, what about the SNP? There's no point even asking anyone from the SNP why.
Still talking about independence, aren't they?
Yeah, but we're one whole country as far as I'm concerned.
We are a union of our own. We always have been.
Britain.
Mm.
Years ago, the stop should have been put to that. Years and years and years ago. I don't understand why Queen Elizabeth I didn't do it when she had the chance to.
But you know what? This is quite ironic, really, when you think about it. Like, take the Scots, yeah. And the Scots are pretty strong-headed people. I think they are genuine people in themselves in the way that they vote, similarly to the way we vote in elections. they were asked the question, did they want to remain part of the United Kingdom? And of course, under their referendum, they said yes. Okay. Now, the political organisation being the SNP under Nicola Sturgeon.
How was that question put to the Irish again? Do we know?
The Scots.
No, and the Irish, because Southern.
Oh, the Northern Ireland. Oh, we're talking
Yeah.
about Brexit, aren't we? So the Northern Ireland, Southern Ireland part. Yeah. Well, actually,
they voted to stay.
yes, they did, and the Scots.
Yeah,
they did because they wanted.
I believe the Scots only voted to leave because of their hatred for the rest of the United Kingdom.
Well, the thing is, the Scots. The point I was just coming to, there, Graham, is that the Scots, in my mind, that they do not dislike the UK. Actually, I think the Scots, in fact, actually understand the union. They understand our collaboration. They understand how it works. You know, the Barnett formula, the money that goes north to help the NHS and so on. And so, actually, I don't think they want to break up as such. It's the political, isn't it, Nicola Sturgeon? But by her own record, this is what I find rather bizarre. Because, like, you know, take Brexit, right? Now, we went to the vote, didn't we? 17.4 million voted to leave the European Union, and what was it, to 16? It was close. We know that. It was close.
It was about 1,600,000 and something.
Exactly.
Like that.
Exactly. But regardless, democracy speaks.
Votes were still coming in
Exactly.
after that.
Yes, they were. They were.
So it could be up to 2 million.
Exactly. So my
still
point,
a win.
A win's a win, isn't it? I mean, under democracy and the voting system, a win is a win. And the thing is also the fact it was proportional representation as well, which was quite handy, wasn't it, with Brexit? Because had it been maybe first past the post, it could have been somewhat of a different story. God forbid. God forbid. But look at it like this, right? So the SNP and let's say the left wing political spectrum of politics was very much in favour of staying part of the European Union, and with that. Yeah, they understood that we won. All right, now the Brexiteers won. Okay, but yet still they were looking to erode the vote. They were looking to re-vote. Nick Clegg in particular was very vocal about the idea of wanting to re the Liberal Democrats at the time. Now, actually, so we're seeing a similar sort of thing, if you like, if you look at it from the point of the SNP. You've got Nicola Sturgeon. She's already had a vote on whether Scotland should leave the United Kingdom, and yet still she puts it back to the people, as if somehow, like the European Union think, in a way, and it's a bit like how they think, but somehow if they keep asking the same question, eventually,
if it did go back, if we had to do that again, we know that we wouldn't be on the Brexit, because they would be putting everything
they
can on top of what they did,
to
make it, and might even be like what happened over the pond. Presidential election.
Well, you still might see that with the French. I mean, look at Marine Le Pen.
Oh, yes.
She's really coming up in the world, isn't she? And
he's losing a lot of support now.
And actually, I think even actually, when we talk about the situation with movements of individuals, if you like, across borders, we talk of that, and we'll get to those points later, won't we, Graham? I suppose we'll talk about that in a moment. But actually, with that in itself, I think even the French citizens of France are actually upset with the movement of which they're seeing, because although we see it from the French, if you like, from the French and the British waters, we actually probably see, well, maybe we don't, but we're not seeing it maybe from how they see it from their borders, internal borders.
Exactly. Maybe they will come out with some of the residents of France will say something like, well, they can go to the United Kingdom. Let the United Kingdom take them all, because they did leave the bloc after all. So there's going to be some resentment there.
Yes, there is. But also, even for those entering into France in the first instance, you're probably going to see that there are probably likelihood French voters actually on maybe Marie Le Pen's way of thinking.
Yes.
Actually, they shouldn't be here in the first place under these conditions.
And she's admitted that herself, which it would. She needs that, but she's admitted that that's there.
Yeah, of course.
And so she's been honest. It sounds like she's been honest down the board at the moment. We don't ever seem to see someone on centre right ever kicking off so badly in Europe, anywhere in Europe, including us. As you know, we're in the same area.
Well, they're all very much the same way of thinking, which is why I suppose, in a way, the European Union has worked for so long. It's only until, of course, I think you've had some leaders change, and of course you've had certain people sort of come to the understanding that actually their democracy as a nation has become difficult and mixed and muddy. You know what I mean? For example,
But it's been left like that.
It has.
And they've added more to the cauldron. They've added more and more and more
over the years.
Yeah, and then there's been no mechanism put in place to help these people to blend in better with not just the language, with our feelings on animals, for example.
Yeah.
Our history in the country on animal rights is probably super the best. It's probably number one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And also we're doing quite well at the moment to do with the greenhouse gases. But that's going to take a while to make effect.
Climate change.
Yes, and
that's another subject.
That's another subject, but we won't touch that one.
We might have maybe a little bit on that, because I've got a couple of things I want to say about that. But talking about, Grem, the European Union, I think what's clear is now we've seen several months of negotiations, let's say, from the likes of the United Kingdom and other countries across the world. And in fact, recently we heard that the Brits have actually made communication with New Zealand. And actually, we, prior to the European Union and prior to our membership, actually did trade with New Zealand, and it was quite prosperous. So it seems like that's coming back.
It always did. We never had my mum and dad said that then it was different. There was no difference. We were still buying from, because they were very keen on Australian lamb, New Zealand lamb.
Yeah.
That's one big export from New Zealand to our country, and it's part of the Commonwealth. So I think maybe the big wigs over in the European Union aren't too pleased with the fact that we've already got a head start because we've got the Commonwealth.
Absolutely.
Someone needs to correct me. I think it's 53 or is it 54 member states?
I think it's 54, isn't it?
We increased one rejoined again. No, one's rejoined recently, and there was about 3, 4, 5 months ago.
Yeah.
One of the South African townships, the areas. I don't know what they call it. It's like we've got a pet with us today, people.
We have. This is Lucy,
our mascot. All right, then I'll move it out of the way.
So, I mean, when we talk of Brexit, we're going to just flip back to that a second, because I think what's evident about Brexit is that for a long period of time, running up to the vote, and even after the vote, it was nothing but Brexit. And it was, in particular, it was either the subject was around how it was unfair and that we need another vote, to it's going to take several years before we can cast a trade deal. It was all doom and gloom, and some positives as well, of course. Not that, in my fair, honest opinion, much of the positives was ever really pushed out there by the mainstream media, because, of course, there was an agenda, I think it's fair to say, if we talk of the likes of the BBC. However, we've had in recent times, and actually for several months now, in fact, we're pushing years, in fact, so I'll get myself corrected on that. We've had COVID. Now, COVID has been the forefront of everything in time on end, hasn't it? In recent times as well. And actually, what
overtook Brexit.
Overtook it completely.
That must have really annoyed certain.
Yes, well, I think it depends on where you sat. I think actually, even
for like worrying as well for the likes of myself and you, we voted leave.
Yeah.
And what's going on?
Even for a Brexiteer, we found that there wasn't really being much spoken about, and actually it was worrying even for us, because we thought, well, actually, what is going on behind the scenes? Is there really this pandemic taking over political well-being and involvement and everything? You know what I mean? Was it really silencing everything that had some form of importance? Was it as bad as it really was being made out, being COVID? I think what's discovered, of course, or has been discovered, at least from my mind, is that we've come to this stage now where we've learned a lot about COVID, and we've learned a lot about the vaccinations, and we've learned a lot about, and it was even said by Savage Avid that, you know, even despite having a double vaccination, yet you can still contract the virus.
Yes, but it's not. It will not get seriously.
It won't get serious.
Yeah,
but
which is a good thing.
Which is a good thing, but it still does not mean you can't give it to somebody else.
No.
So
who can get serious?
Yeah,
with it.
and I think what we've got to really appreciate is when COVID first came around, and I for one included, was very, very worried about the impact upon how it was going to have the effect on people, and what it meant for civilization, let's say, because of the way it was being spoken of. No one really knew what it was. And then now we are at a stage where we've got more understanding. I think what we've also got to remember now is that there are very, very few in percentage that are actually dying from COVID itself, which actually brings us to the point that actually, if by having COVID and other medical conditions would be the deciding factor, wouldn't it? You know, that's going to be where you're going to find the biggest damage being made, because it's not good when mixed with other ailments. However, if it's just COVID alone, then of course, then you've got a good chance of getting through it. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Unless of course you're over the age of say 40 or 50, in which case then you're probably going to have things like diabetes and dementia and so on. Sadly,
yeah.
And of course then that's going to have a knock-on effect, isn't it?
Right, Ben. Well, as we know ourselves, a pet in Lancashire, I believe.
Right. Yeah.
Has no. Let's start again. Go back.
That's right. Carry on.
Oh.
Let's,
Whoops.
Fine.
You better edit this.
Oh yeah.
Oh, what was it? Was it Lancashire?
Well then.
You mentioned Lancashire earlier on.
Yeah, I did.
Right. We're going to leave it because it's hilarious.
The next day.
Yes. So.
Well,
Anyway.
Grem, since we had a visitor, a pet in this frame just now, talking of pets.
Pets. Yes. In Weybridge, I'm doing it again. Take 110. Right. Pets. We're talking about pets.
Woofers.
Yeah, woof woofs. Not quack quacks. Not squirrels.
Do you have squirrels as pets?
You know, a bit like those
Chinchillas.
ferret things.
Ferret
Or
things.
chinchillas, yeah. Chinchillas. Oh, anyway, getting back to the business of the day. A pet in Weymouth.
Weymouth.
Say the word.
Weymouth.
God. Weymouth has been diagnosed with COVID. Apparently the first. Within this area, anyway.
Right.
Do we believe in this?
When are we going to vaccinate pets then?
Well, talking about vaccinations, they're now telling everyone that we could have all had it squirted up our nose and injected.
Really?
Yes. Apparently they were doing that with children. Anyway,
Is that with or without consent?
it's with all the information that is free to us on our brilliant news work.
Yes. A lot of the concerns, I think, Graham, was around the vaccinations anyway, at least, wasn't it? Was children. Because, certain children, like, for example, children that are not fertile, of course, obviously, being young as they are, where there was fears, wasn't there, that actually it could make them infertile by having the COVID injection. I think, was it AstraZeneca or was it Pfizer? I'm not sure which one it was now, but one of the two, I think.
I think that was Pfizer because
Was it?
Oh, my voice. Oh. That was Pfizer, I think. So there was a lot of digging at the British version, wasn't there?
Yeah.
And for some reason they didn't touch Pfizer, but I didn't hear that about the.
No, well, that was, I think, some of the reasons as to why I think not only parents were concerns, but also children themselves, because naturally a woman would want to have a child at some point in her life, and so therefore having that possibility that she could then become infertile for the sake of a virus that we now know is a very small death rate in respect of the chance of death.
It causes less deaths than someone said and this was media wise, than the common cold.
Well, actually, I wouldn't be surprised at that. But what we've also got to remember,
Lose.
yeah. But Graham, I think we've got to also remember is that it's not the common cold that kills people, is it? Similarly to the fact that it's not COVID that actually kills people. In fact, what it is it's a mixture of different things all added in, isn't it? So, like for example, you know, if you're elderly or your immune system is weakened, naturally, yes, probably certainly you could die from a cold, which later could turn into flu, and then in turn can go into pneumonia. So you know, I think it's not so much COVID or the flu that's dangerous. It's more. I think it's a case by case, isn't it? But I think
it's a case by case, and it's the fact that it's a new variant of, if you'd like to say, the flu.
Yeah. It
is a new variant. It's a new name, and it's going to take time for them to get the understanding of the workings of it. But what they've learnt so far and produced so far in fighting against coronavirus has been superb.
Yeah,
they've gone crazy. Why couldn't they do that with HIV and AIDS?
See, this is my argument. See,
and you know, and other situations,
you know,
cancer for crying out loud.
Yeah, I mean, you know, people said to me, Ben, what do you think about the vaccination? Do you know the flu vaccination? Do you have it? And I said, no, actually, I don't have it. And the reason for why, in my mind, I don't have it, in my own personal belief, is that actually I'm able-bodied, fortunately, to be able to be the one person out of many, I'm sure to say, can fight it without any added aid. Whereas, obviously, somebody who is considered elderly, who may have underlying health concerns. Now, I think actually, if I'm right in saying that the flu vaccine was only ever given under a criteria to those that was vulnerable or
over the age of 70.
Yeah,
isn't it? And
but this is where I sort of, in my mind, Graham, this is where
and those that work with vulnerable people.
Absolutely, but in my mind, this is kind of where I see COVID now. In my head, that's how I see it.
COVID will get there at some point.
But in my mind, I think that's there now. Because what I'm saying is that COVID, in my mind, the vaccinations, they're saying it's about protecting the elderly, protecting the nursing homes, So we've understood now already that COVID is dangerous to the older community. So for me to think, actually, is it necessary that we start vaccinating children when actually we understand that it's not the children that are going to die from this? It's in fact the elderly. So why don't we class now COVID as the flu, as a strain of the flu, if you like, because ultimately that's what it is, right?
It's all come from the same.
It's the same sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the same strain, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of see COVID. It's a bit one-track minded. This, I mean, I don't want to put some comedy in on just yet. Maybe I will actually. I kind of look at COVID and the flu now, and you remember when we used to have storms, particularly Americans, you know, like if they have a storm, they call it different names. You know, each storm they have a different name for it. Now, I think that's kind of what we're doing now with illnesses. It's almost like we're naming illnesses. Even actually, the illness is very much similar to the one we had last year,
yeah,
but
so
we're now naming it something else.
It's possibly where the flu has adapted.
Yeah. So now we're naming things like we do with flus and
but the evidence from China doesn't point in that direction.
Hmm.
And another thing, you know, how all the nations have reacted to the news of coronavirus.
Yeah.
It's like, can we say it's a possibility that another nation, well-known nation, is stepping over people in different countries and coming in through the back door, and excuse the pun, but and taking over.
Yeah, well, it's
because why haven't they spent all this money and time and effort on cancer?
Well, yeah,
there's many different strains of cancer.
Yeah,
but it all comes from the beginning. You know, the little bits that started.
But it's about money, isn't it? I think that's why we understand. I mean, there was no two ways about it. There is a cure for cancer. I don't care what anybody says, Graham. There is also, as we speak, right this moment in time, there is actually a cure for cancer. The reason for why it's not publicly heard of is simply because, and I think it's fair to say, that there is a huge amount of money being made from treatment. So for example, they will never probably see a cure as from one to another, simply because of the amount of money it makes. Now, I think we also saw that with COVID, because if you remember, there was a time where we had HGV lorry drivers having to travel across the continent, and they were told and not just those, but also tourists in general, would have to get a test. And actually, there were individuals creating those tests, making those tests available, but they were doing it for a price. And actually, there was a stage in time where I actually remember people paying a good portion of money to actually have a test, just to say that they were okay to travel. And so we saw that.
I think it's £20 each way.
Exactly, and even still, that's still a hell of a lot of money if you're somebody who has to make a regular journey. So I think we're also seeing people now making money on the back of COVID, as like we do with, sadly, with the big industries, with the likes of.
But this is just another oversight from all of the world leaders.
Yeah.
But or is it deliberate? But who? But the thing is, what nation is making the most out of this?
Well, exactly.
And when we can't even mention it.
It's hard to say, because I think there is such a world domination when it comes to a number of nations, isn't there? If you talk of China, if you talk of America, there are countries out there that are considered to be the world's power grabbers and power influencers. So I suppose with that, it's hard to say who may be behind this, but ultimately, regardless,
I would say China is like a sleeping bear, and it's already through the front door of America.
Yeah.
And it's 10 steps ahead at the moment.
Yeah.
And the American authorities and the government and president, well, he hasn't got much clue himself anyway. But we don't really want to get onto American politics.
We don't. But actually, talking to that, how's the Russians dealt with all this? Because they've been pretty quiet, haven't they? It just popped into my mind.
Yeah, but have you noticed nothing's been on the news about it? Nothing's been on how they've dealt with it.
How have the Russians dealt with COVID?
They probably have treated it like a cold or a flu.
But then we also understood, didn't we, with the likes of Sweden? I mean, all right, people used to say the counter argument was, Sweden population was low, and therefore it wasn't an issue to them, and they carried on similarly, no lockdowns.
Was that the same as Denmark? Were they similar? They were very
similar, weren't they?
Yeah.
But I think what we can actually say from all this is that regardless of what country was involved in COVID, in fact, it was a globalized issue. All countries dealt with it somewhat differently, and actually what was right and what was wrong. We heard about the herd immunity for some time, hadn't we? And of course, what was right in that, or what was wrong in that? And of course, there is no right or wrong about this. I think what we have to do is just understand. I think
it was needed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Realistically, it was needed, and everyone knows that it was needed it needed to happen.
But like people say, no, but herd immunity is okay. But the problem is with herd immunity is that you become immune, which is great, but then it won't last forever. But then
they don't know that.
They don't know that. But then you could also say the same for colds and flus. I mean, one year, like take this time of the year, it's November, it's getting colder, the nights are getting darker. We're starting to see that winter coming in. We know we're going to get colds and flus. It's natural. It's part of the way of life. It's evolution and the way it works.
I think I'm on the start of a cold myself.
Yeah. But you probably will find the reason for why you're ill was because either you've got a different strain of that flu or cold that maybe you're picking up that was different to the one you had last year. Yeah. Ultimately, so it's always evolving. So we're always going to see COVID evolve. We're always going to see colds and flus evolve. I think what we now have to do as people, as civilization, is just accept the fact that yes, it does exist. There are ways to deal with this.
We've got to live with it.
We've got to live with it. Yeah. We've got to protect our elders. But then who doesn't? I mean, we've always protected our elders. If you've got a cold,
but we can only protect our elders and loved ones. You can't enough with what resources that we have.
Exactly. But to shut countries down and to slow the economies. But when it first came about, Graham, I have to say, I wasn't probably the only one that thought this. But as much as it could become a conspiracy theory here, I would say that actually, when it first came about, my first initial reaction was we've seen so much from the left-wing ideology around Brexit of how they were trying to undo it.
It was just
and for me, it was like, is this their last-ditched attempt?
Yeah,
let's shut down the economy. Possibly. Let's shut the world down.
Getting China involved.
Yeah, and I kind of thought, brilliant. I actually thought, do you know what? I didn't see that coming. They got me if they hadn't got the professionals out there. And do you know what? And I thought for a long time.
They could carry on, couldn't they, with their lives? And when it comes out in public, if that did happen, they will just to hold their heads up
But
high.
you know,
I mean, I don't know how people can be like that.
No, I don't. But but the thing is,
Hope
of course,
it's not true.
this is why now we're seeing Brexit now, back, like as you said earlier, we're seeing Brexit now back into
Yeah.
the media, slowly but surely, and we're seeing the positives upon how we were seeing it going, and yet that's happening. It's all come together.
Yeah, but is that because the world governments want to? They've now got to the stage where they can't take much more heat on
No.
COVID.
No,
So
exactly.
let's stock up the fire with Brexit and with the Article 16.
I think for me, I mean, I'm no professional, right? I'm no scientist, I'm no doctor, I'm no nurse, don't take it from me. But what I would say, as somebody call myself the Joe Blog of society, okay, hearing this now, that you can have double vaccinations and still contract COVID and still pass COVID on.
What's the point in having it?
Potentially,
in the first
yes,
place?
exactly. And so
That's what you think.
So
isn't
now,
it?
exactly. So for me, now I'm kind of, in a way, feeling somewhat relieved, Grem, because that scary pandemic that we all come about, where people had to potentially lose their jobs over, and the way of lockdowns and change of lifestyle was so immediate and so destructive. Now I realise, thank the Lord, if we can say that, that actually it wasn't so bad after.
October was the first case in England. Yeah, October.
Yeah,
the
it was.
year 2019.
Yeah,
October, and nothing was done then.
But do you know what? I remember when it first came about. When did it first come about now, COVID? Was it March time or was it just before that? But I remember now being ill.
No, it was February. There were some news bulletins, bits and bobs. And in March it really lit fire.
Because before that, I think it was December, January time, I remember feeling somewhat quite rough. And I remember feeling not too great.
So I went through that as well.
I think we both
did.
did.
We discussed it on the previous show.
And it was a serious bout of the flu, Grem. And I have to say, that was
awful.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden these reports started coming out. And the first case was said to be some individual from the UK that went to China to do some form of conference, who then brought it back from China. I read in the paper. So let's just say that was the case, right? But actually, maybe it was actually in the country before they announced it. More than
October,
likely.
previous year.
Yeah.
So they're just trying to see.
Yeah.
It's just it's a nightmare, the whole situation.
It is. Yeah.
We need to really move on.
We do.
As a nation.
As globally as well.
Exactly.
I think as well.
They should have locked down a lot earlier,
but Graham,
than they did.
Sounding controversial now, and I'm going to say it, and it brings us on to our next topic slowly but surely. We talk about lockdowns, we talk about all the tight, stringent dealings with how to deal with COVID, and yet we still had people crossing the borders, didn't we, Graham? And I remember talking to some of the elderly population.
I agree with you, mate. I mean, I just can't believe that was still allowed to happen, and the fleet weren't out there.
Yeah.
So why?
But it's been going on for years, and I think actually we've seen the last few years it's got a lot worse. I think even now, as it's been seen, we've got our local. Is
it near 30,000 now? 30 something.
It was said, wasn't it, on
number.
The Farage at Large in Folkestone? Nigel Farage was talking to guests, and actually a particular guest, wasn't it, who was quite advocate in the field of migration. Had suggested that it could be somewhere in the region of around 30,000 by the end of the year. Now I believe that's what he said, and that's significant, isn't it? But in the time of COVID, and the fear that actually, all the while we're doing what we're doing, the infections could still be coming in,
which is it's pointless, isn't it? What the government is getting us to do isn't going to make too much of a difference, because we're having floods of people coming in.
Yeah.
And it is floods. 30,000 people is a ridiculous amount. And yes, maybe not all of them are with the contracted COVID, but
are they even having tests though? This is the other thing. I don't even think they're having tests, are they?
If they are,
it's very quiet.
If the tests are accurate, and the tests are by themselves anyway. Because if you've got money to make a better life for yourself and you want to come to this country, you've got money to be able to pay for a false test, haven't you?
The land of milk and honey, Grem, which is what I think a lot of people seem somehow to believe, the country is about. Because then evidently they come here because it's a better life, right? But I mean, it still goes back to the point that it's the first safest country entering the European Union, the economic zone, which is of course Greece. But then, is it fair to say the Greece should take? So no, of course they don't want to. So they don't want to go to Greece. So they move forward up through the continent, and they get to Britain. But ultimately, I think they have a sharp shock. I think at least in that once they've got here, maybe do they not realise actually it is tough once you're in the system? It's no easier than it is anywhere else. Or any harder.
But they are moving at a hell a lot faster than a normal resident from this country.
Yeah, of course they are. Yeah.
So, but
there was a report,
which is understandable in a way.
There's a report in Dover of a food chain. I won't reference the chain, but it was. I mean, you can look it up. It's documented. It was a pizza chain, and they spent thousands and thousands of pounds on feeding the migrants as they came into the port, or should we say, into the safe house. I think it's fair to say is the area of where they go immediately after they've initially got to the UK, and they were fed thousands and thousands. And
we won't be mentioning the name of this.
We won't, but of course,
place.
But Grem,
it's not fair on them.
It's not fair on them. I
they
suppose
would lose a business
potentially, but of course it is documented, and so if you happen to want to look for the story, it's there. You will be able to find it. But that's the extent of this, isn't it? Is that people are now having to accept the fact that although we do have difficulties in housing and difficulties in the economy in certain areas, really, and in life in this country, and yet all the while we're now having to find them food, we're also having to find them housing. It's becoming, I wouldn't say a burden as such, if we thought that these people that actually are coming here for genuine purposes and wanting to work and to live a normal, happy life. But there's no guarantee of that when we don't know who these individuals are. They're getting rid of their papers. They come here. We don't know if they're criminals in a past life. We don't know if they're bringing any infections in. We absolutely know nothing about these people. And when we know that there is terrorism,
you don't know who's coming in directly.
We don't know who.
You don't know them.
No.
From Adam Dewey, so
we don't know where they've come from, and that's the whole point in this.
And the papers that they bring might be pucker documents.
Oh yeah, of course.
But for a totally different person.
Yeah, but we understand that a trafficker, you're getting people to spend up to somewhere in the region of around £10,000 to get this stuff done. So they're not short of cash. Some of these, and that's where the argument.
I've never seen these forms, so I don't know how in depth they are. But I don't think any form would be sufficient enough unless it states the blood type of the individual.
Well, yeah,
and with fingerprints, and it's got to have all that and photographic evidence. If it's just normal paperwork with A, B, C, D, E, it's not. That's not right. It's not keeping the people of the whole of Great Britain safe.
Well, I say it before and I'll say it again, and I often tend to shut the conversation off with this statement. Is if I was to grab a boat, Grem, and go across the English Channel and make my way to France, you'd be sure to know I would be stopped and deported and probably fined. So there we have it. So it makes the world rather somewhat strange, doesn't it? That you can go one way but not the other. Grem, Wokism.
What we need is to find. There's this episode of SpongeBob SquarePants that I thoroughly enjoyed.
All right,
I still enjoy. We just need to find the plug and pull the plug.
You've got to get someone to come out and unblock it.
Oh no, they won't be able to come.
Dynarod.
It'd take a good few months for it to all dry out anyway. If anyone wants
You're talking about the channel?
Walk of the seabed, they're going to sink.
Oh,
like sinking sand, aren't they?
Well, yeah. I mean, enough stuff down there as it is, isn't there? And shipwrecks and plankton.
Mr. Krabs. Right.
Wokism, Grem. What's going on with Wokism? When we did a show in March, was it this year, wasn't it? I think last time we did a show, we spoke about Wokism, and we did it on a live show, didn't we? And I think we discovered how things were changing and how almost it's accepted or expected of us to have to accept. Now, would you not say that there's a word now we've got for this, isn't there? Somebody like maybe us, where you don't agree with Wokism, I like the ism bit because you got racism, wokeism. There's a lot of isms going on right now in culture. In
Isms we could do without.
When me and Brad first met, I didn't think we'd get along, but turns out we kind of agree on everything. Your racial identity is the most important thing. Everything should be looked at through the lens of race.
Jinx, you owe me a Coke. We both have a lot of opinions about people of color, even though we barely know any.
I say colored people, but as long as we're classifying them, we both think minorities are a united group who think the same and act the same.
And vote the same. You don't want to lose your black card. Sorry, I don't know. I just think we should
Roll back discrimination laws so we can hire based on race again. Jinx, now you owe me a Coke. Hey, tell them what you told me yesterday.
White actors should only do voices for white cartoon characters.
I've been saying that for years. Stick to your own.
Us white people, we have so much privilege.
I agree. It is a privilege to be white. Ask him about interracial dating.
All I said is that black men who date white women have internalized racism, and white men that date ethnic women are fetishizing them.
Guys against interracial dating now. Like, am I being pranked? Did Boomer put you up to this?
Ugh, you know that taco place is white owned?
White people should be making white foods, like Kraft macaroni and cheese, no seasoning, not even salt. It's like he's a mind reader. I mean, I've been pushing for segregation forever, and my man does what?
I created an improv comedy show exclusively for ethnic people.
Guy segregates comedy on my birthday.
White people need to stop wearing dreadlocks, and they need to stop appropriating black people's music.
Shaved heads and country music, the way God intended.
You know all white people are racist.
I'm listening.
Even if you have a black wife or a black friend group, you're still really racist.
You know, we just kicked a guy out of the organization for having a black girlfriend, but if you can promise me he's still really racist, we'll consider letting him back in. Black people should only shop at black businesses.
I guess the only thing we really disagree about is I think white people are the root of all evil.
But what did I tell you, though? If we can narrow that down to a certain group of tiny-hatted white people, I think we can come to an understanding.
Technically, I don't consider Jewish people white.
Neither do I. But we're still cool with interracial cucking, right?
Yeah, as long as you pay for it. Sex work should be celebrated.
Yeah, and so we could absolutely. And so, but there was a type of word that we said. What was it, Graham? It was wokeism, but it's not ism. We'll leave the ism bit for the moment. I mean, wokeism works in its own right. But let's just say it was woke...
Variant.
Woke-farian. Let's explain this, Graham.
Basically, it's an individual, I say like myself and Ben here, that don't agree totally with the woke sugar lumps that are out and about at the moment.
Sugar lumps.
Pointless. Yes, I didn't want to say the word SHI and with ends in the T.
So in other words, so what you're saying actually is this.
But there's one topic. Sorry.
No,
there's
please.
one topic come up recently. Children from a Pacific primary school here in our hometown Dover, are wearing clip-on ties.
Oh.
Now, we don't even have to go to the problem here. It's obvious. Normal ties were done away with, clip-on ties, because it's less stress. It's a learning curve for the child. Yeah. It's getting them to make themselves look respectable and well presented. Oh, just clip a tie on. What's it going to be next time?
Well, I don't know. I kind of think, I mean, in a previous job, I used to have to wear a clip-on tie. And the reason for that, and it was discussed, was because of safety.
Oh, yeah.
Because of, doing a job with the public.
Because someone grabs it.
Yeah. Although, fine. You could also say it's because maybe the majority of the population can't do a tie-up. Or they haven't been taught to do it. So therefore, it's just easier if you have a clip-on. The other thing...
It took my youngest ages to learn, and I've shown her...
I mean, the other thing, just to add, is, and talking about clothing again, I know, let me just get something clear, right? I can actually do up laces. I'm perfectly fine doing double knots, normal single knots, you name it, right? I'm okay with that, right?
Jolly good.
And they look smart, especially on shoes. However, I did, buy some shoes once, whilst at work, where I had Velcro instead. And I kind of thought, well, it's just convenient more than anything. You just put them on, put the Velcro across, job done. You know what I mean?
It's making us lazy.
Well, yeah.
It's not nice either.
Yeah.
I just want people to look presentable.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
You know, as children, I'm going back to the school age. You know, they should be looking presentable. They're upholding their school name. What's wrong with doing a nice Windsor knot every now and then instead of a standard school tie?
Well, why don't you, for the viewers, Graham, just, if you want, give us a show of how to do a Windsor knot. You know, because I have to say, you say Windsor knot, and it sounds all very spectacular, but I couldn't tell you what that is.
I think this is a Windsor knot.
But it looks pretty good to me.
So I'll get another tie.
Yeah, let's see this, Grem.
I'll put on black. Just in case I have to murder someone later. Already then. So, there you go. Windsor knot. I'm not standing up. And people want to know what newsreaders wear beneath the desk.
Graham, the problem is, right, you've got a black tie and a black shirt. I can't even see it on the screen.
Give it time, look.
All right, okay, yeah. Actually, yeah, all right, yeah, you can see it.
Reminds me of a carry-on film. Right, yeah, so normally you'd have it about there, but you bring it up more because you're using more this side of the time.
Talking about carry-on films, hold that thought. You had Carry On Camping. Do you remember that?
Oh, very funny programme.
Yeah, very good. But nowadays, because it's modern, everything's modern, times are evolving. Carry On Glamping.
Glamp?
You know glamping. It's like a posh camping, isn't it?
Oh.
I don't even think it really should be classed as camping because it's not really.
Talk to the hand.
Right. Sorry, yeah, as you were saying, Greg.
Face isn't listening. Right. So you start. Go over.
Hope you're watching this, kids.
Long piece over the short piece. And the short piece doesn't have to be too short. You're making now the area that you would normally go through as a school tie, standard tie. This time you're just coming straight round, back through. You can drop this bit now and then bring that back round again. Oh, you can actually do cravats as well. I've got a cravat.
What, under the same way?
It's more easier.
Oh, is it? Isn't that for ladies, cravats? Not or
this is like a cravat. I think it's because this tie. Windsor knot. That's it. They're normally.
Yeah, you got a nice fat lump there, haven't you? Just under the Adam's apple. Yeah.
See? Just got that.
Yeah.
Jolly good.
Yeah, jolly good. Jolly good old chap. Yeah. So obviously, it would be longer, wouldn't it? But,
yes.
But it's a really good way of putting it, Grem. And I think actually there are lots of people out there now who will be tying their knots Windsor-like. Grem, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
So, okay, so that's Wokism, right? Changing everything.
Wokefarian. We never finished.
Same thing, really.
Well, Wokefarian is people that are possibly totally against the wokeness that it's about. Most of it, anyway.
Do you know what I really think? Do you know what? Again,
this wokeness started back when we was at primary school.
Did it?
With conkers.
I missed it. Did it? Oh yes, it did. Because you weren't allowed. For some strange reason, they stopped you allowing to play with conkers, didn't they?
And we weren't allowed in the playground if it's snowing because you might slip over and graze our little knees.
Yeah, it was coming in, wasn't it? Do you know what I really think? Though, actually, I'll give some credit to today's society. I think maybe the modern woke gen, right? I'd say maybe because back in the day when we were kids, mate, and of course not just when we were kids, but our generation, right? Life was already sort of complete, wasn't it? We've been brought up, we had our values, we knew, understood, schools were educational, and now it seems like it's gone round in the full circle. We've got children of today now. It's almost like they've got nothing to do in change.
They've got nothing to do because they don't understand what to do next because
absolutely.
Everything is done for them.
So absolutely. So now they're trying to change everything because then they can turn around to their children and say, well, when we were
us
adults,
growing up,
children,
we've had the first 3 to 5 years is building blocks of a child's life. We've spoke about this before on the show.
Yeah.
It's for attachments.
Yeah.
And how to form friendships and learning right from wrong. After that, it's just observation of our main caregivers, our parents. And if they do a good job, that's going to reflect on you as an individual as you grow up.
But it's almost like, you go through the ages, your 80s music, your 90s music.
But we didn't have any of these let us help you gangs. And we were basically from the age of maybe 7 or 8 on our own.
Yeah.
To explore.
I think I remember when I was younger, I remember my parents, I overheard a conversation, you know, when you're kids and you overhear conversations. I remember this conversation about how my parents were questioning another member of the family, mention no names, about how they brought their children up. And they were referring to a book. It was almost as if it was black and white. It was straightforward. You can bring your children up by this book. And I think that, for me, at that moment, was a starting point when I thought, hang on a minute,
how on earth did that get the go-ahead to be printed?
How did that... So I think at that point then, I realised maybe times were changing. So I think you're right. I think things started to change even when we were younger. Things were becoming less and less acceptable.
But there wasn't enough... There wasn't enough anchorage there from the...
To counteract it.
From the woke...
Oh, yes.
The woke creators. So you got like the left-wing politics side.
But Labour still existed at that time.
Yeah, but they weren't actually.
No, they weren't.
No,
they weren't. And
but now all of a sudden they realised that there's a lot of people going over to the Green Party because of this wokeness.
Yeah.
And
well, they were the working class, weren't they? Of course.
Yeah.
So, I must be corrected. They were the party of the people at that point in time. However, I suppose
it take ages for Labour to get back to the states. And
well, I'm glad you said that,
really,
because the political spectrum is another thing we were going to discuss. And the political spectrum now, I mean, we are in November 2021, right? And so it's been a few months, several months now since our last show. We can say that given COVID, given the political landscape around elections and how things have changed significantly in such a short space in time, could you agree, or would you have an opinion on this, in that Labour and Conservative at the moment are almost very similar in their way of politics? You know, because the Conservatives were very much centre-right, right? I think it's fair to say communism. Whoops! Communism. They were very much conservatism, sorry, was what I was looking for. Very conservative and conservative politics. It was very...
It's a difficult time for politicians.
It is.
Because, and I'm going back to just the word COVID for now. They've never had this before in their lives just to contend with, and it's a new playing pitch for them, and it's probably the only time in history that Labour has had to zip their mouths.
Yeah,
you know, the left side, but the left side of politics. But
we're starting to see, and not just recently, but we're starting to see the likes of Keir Starmer having various different things to say. Sorry, Sir Keir Starmer for the.
I actually do. I like him. I think he's quite a nice. He's a nice guy that brings out positiveness when he speaks.
Presentable.
Yeah, he's presentable, and he does speak some sense. But Labour, not for me.
Why is he in Labour then, really, when you think about it?
He's more. He's like centre left.
Yeah, true. It's about the most centre left they've had for a while, isn't it? You've got to be honest.
But most of their young support, which is quite high, is their left.
Oh yeah, of course.
And maybe a bit more left.
Well, you've only got to see that from the likes of Canterbury, haven't you? Being such a very left-wing Labour side of Labour, you know, being university-based. And but actually, I will say, given universities, and it's quite easy to, and I don't want to be too stereotypical here, but it's actually quite easy to establish left-wing politics with universities. I think it's historically seen to be the case. But there are some voices now within universities that are moving more to the right and actually challenging, which is amazing to see, and it's good, and it's healthy, and it's about democracy and debate.
I do think it's healthy as well. I think everything should be done from a centre.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just wish there was a political party out there that, if a left policy was ideal for education, then do it. If a centre point view is better for the likes of cost of gas, because it has to be. Yeah. There's no winner or losers. We're all losers, aren't we? There's no winners in that way. That's part and parcel.
I read a Facebook post. I mean, I don't get all my news from Facebook, but I read somebody on a Facebook post about climate change, and he used the words, "Well, we can do what we like at the COP26 because the reality of it all is we can't change the way the sun behaves." And I thought, God, that was really good. I really like that. I mean, we can't control the sun. The sun has its own way of life. It's going to do what it needs to do.
And these storms stir up a lot of difference in temperatures anyway. These
Of course.
we've had, but then some of these major storms, they say, have been created via global warming, or is it just it's going around the clock face? Is it sort of like that? Is it are we I don't know, halfway through the end of humanity?
Well, maybe we are. Maybe we
There
are.
might be another 20,000 years to go, but
Yeah.
are we?
But who was responsible for the Ice Age? I don't think too many men were involved in pollution back then, or women. But that's my point.
Yes.
You know, but actually, I think there is a value of change that we could all have. Certainly, there are certainly things we can do as individuals to improve the situation, isn't there, or better the situation. But I think in reality, we can't actually stop the change, because the change is forever evolving, and regardless of man or woman, I think whatever will be will be. But
Yes.
but let's be honest, Graham. You know, when you hear these people challenging the subject of what are we doing, our government needs to do more, our world leaders need to do more. I haven't watched any of COP26, so I'm not going to say for a second what I have understood their plan is, right? Because I have no idea what they've said, right? You may do, but just hear me out for a second, right? So with that, based on the fact that I have no idea what anybody has said within COP26, think of it like this, right? The world, is, as we know, changing. People, right, are getting older, but we are not changing our habits, because if we were to, then we would have to change the way we do things, such as like mobility and fuel and general. So you can't even go back to horse and cart. I said this to somebody. You can't even go back to horse and cart because you've got the waste. Although it can be used for farming,
it's still a greenhouse gas.
It's still a greenhouse gas. So you can't even go back to horses. And that was considered quite clean, wasn't it? So without horses, without cars, what does that leave the world? How does that leave people, humanity? We don't get any goods and services. We don't get. I mean, actually, the world goes backwards, not forwards.
Exactly. We get no Emmerdale, get no EastEnders.
Everything stops. We have nothing.
Only way is Essex.
I mean, is it even acceptable
Not
nowadays
sick,
to
is
burn
it?
a candle? Because to burn a candle is. I mean, what makes that candle? I mean, where do you draw the line? So they say net carbon emission, zero carbon. I mean, you can't be zero carbon emission.
Well, I had 25 tea light candles lit around my lounge yesterday evening.
Global warming. Do you realise you just melted 20 ice caps in Antarctica?
Oh, really?
Probably. They also said, didn't they, that if you leave the red light on standby on your TV screen, that again has an impact.
Well, when they get in contact, can you just tell them I'm out?
Yeah, sure. Wokism. Isms.
Isms.
If you want a clean break news reporting platform, I recommend, not I, but there's many that would also say the same, I'm
yes,
sure.
I recommend it as well.
Is GB News. Go on to GB News. Was it 236, isn't it?
On
Channel
Sky.
236 on normal channel Sky. Yeah, it could be Sky 23. It's not 236.
Wrong. Wrong.
1551.
I'll tell you what, guys, we will
It's
get it. for you.
channel 515. So please do.
Is that
log in.
Sky?
Sky. And have a look. You can go on the Go app. You know, is it Sky Go? You can also just watch it on Sky.
I'll say one thing about Farage at Large. It's good and it's produced quite well. It's really pucker stuff.
Yeah.
But Nigel, darling Nigel, if you want to be taken seriously, you need to come up with a better phrase. I mean, Farage at Large. This is why people just laugh at you when they shouldn't be laughing at you. They should be supporting you.
I don't know. I
because-
quite liked it. Do you not like it?
I don't. I think not Farage at Large. I mean,
Yeah.
is this a comedy sketch? No, they need to take it.
Grabs
You
your
know, you know
attention.
what I'm like, though.
Yeah.
I has to be professional. And
I think it grabs your
and
attention, though, doesn't it?
He is professional. Nigel Farage is a professional guy. But, you know, maybe change the name. Might
When you had Barrage to Farage, that was good.
Yeah, but we laughed in after that.
Yeah.
Because
But I think
can't barrage the Farage.
Yeah, it's identity though, isn't it? It's like people know.
Barrage the Farage.
You know, you hear Farage at large. I don't know. It's quite catchy. I don't know.
They need something. They need something else. They need another 1 or 2 words in there if he wants to keep that large.
Keep it large with Farage.
Former UK Independence Party leader. He's laughing. There's no doubt whatsoever, Farage. Nigel, thank you, sir. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, something like that. Keep it, keep it large, which would be interpreted as keeping it active. Getting the truth out there with the facts. But Farage at large it doesn't do it for me. I'm sorry. Bearing in mind,
Well, we can never be large enough. I mean, after all,
the Gremster here got stopped and searched twice at that venue in Folkestone. Apparently, I flagged up as a concern for Nigel Farage.
Yes, I remember you said. Yeah, I remember that.
I nearly said the F word. Then back at the, I thought, what's going on?
Yeah, but it's security though, isn't it?
I said to the guy, "You being serious?"
Yeah, but the thing is, Graham, actually, in their defence.
But Nigel clocked me twice when he came down for the beers afterwards, because he doesn't like his Argo. Bless him.
Who doesn't?
Yeah. He clocked me twice, but he looked really concerned when he was looking at me. So I do not know what the hell's going on.
Maybe you look like somebody you had an argument with at the European Union over something, and you just thought, "Oh, here we go."
I couldn't fight my way out of a bloody crisp packet.
Well, look, picture it like this, right? Now, I used to do a job where
I could fight myself out of a ice cream tub, though.
I used to do a job, Graham, whereas we dealt with the members of the public, and quite often somebody, no particular person, but it was heard a few times, would say, "Do I look like a terrorist?" And I don't know what answer you can give to somebody saying something like that, because actually the only answer is, well, what does a terrorist look like? But that would be provoking. You've got to be good, you've got to be customer service based, you've got to be but actually
it's not what they look like to be a terrorist. It's how they are behaving.
Exactly.
And if they're making too many mistakes and looking over shoulders.
But this is like, it brings me back to Sadiq Khan. Now, Sadiq Khan
good guy, Sadiq Khan.
He's brilliant, isn't he?
Yeah,
he loves it.
Yeah.
London.
Did he barely get in? Did he barely win that election? Or was it a flop?
Quite probably.
Well, it's a very
metropolitan
bubble. European city, isn't it? It's not even English.
But he said we should have
not being racist.
No, not at all. But he did say, Graham. He did say
more. London's more for outside.
Do you know somebody? Yes, it's more multiculturalistic. But actually, I don't like the word multiculturalism. Because actually, I used to say this, right? Even when I was in a UKIP, when I was a councillor, and not even when I was a councillor, but even in that time when we were involved with politics, Graham, I used to say multiculturalism because it was like the word to use, right? It was kind of accepting the fact that we are a country made up of various different ethnicities. Yeah. But multiculturalism is the wrong word. We are not multicultural because actually we are our own culture. Right, let's remember that.
Yeah, we're our own culture with cultures within that culture.
Yes, but we must not get confused with the sake of saying multicultural. We're not a multiculturalistic country. We are a one
it's just
identity.
A word that is just
we're
thrown
multi-ethical, multi-racial.
Yes.
Not multicultural. Let's
and
get
we
that
all
correct.
work by the same set of rules. Well,
exactly.
It should work like that, but
I was wrong. I was standing there advocating politics, and I was using the word multiculturalism, and it's not multiculturalism. I hate myself for it. It's multi-ethical,
It's all about working together.
Yeah.
To make society better.
It's not multiculturalism because that's accepting the fact. That's actually accepting the fact that your country is anybody's to the extent that you can change.
Well, I think that
its identity.
That was accepted back in the 1950s.
I think it probably was.
But by the 1980s, there was black people were fully accepted.
Oh yeah,
near enough fully accepted.
And they are now. They are now.
There will be the odd one or two idiots out there that like to be racist.
Yeah.
But you can't stop
think-
and vet everyone, can you?
No, you can't.
On a day-to-day basis.
But I think the fear that the general population have, I think it's fair to say, regardless of political influence, is their fear is that coming from somebody who is considered an atheist, somebody who's not a man of the church, however, being that case, I am somebody who does agree with this country being seen and has been for generations a Christianity-based country. So therefore,
the country's roots
because it's the
foundations are.
But I think
based on it.
Exactly. But I think what the fear is, I think that where it comes from is that they're worried that actually people have come from various backgrounds that have such a vastly different way of life that actually is almost becoming imposed on our way of life and changing our ways.
No, it's not being imposed on our way of life. It's basically we are being pressured to take another path.
Yes,
because it's not deemed.
Now that doesn't make you immigrants. That doesn't make you anti.
Because we need immigration.
Racist.
Every country in the world needs immigration to be able to survive. Yeah, it's a business. Every country's a business.
Exactly. So I think that's the real fear that people have, and I probably would put myself in that same category because if you go to Spain or if you go to France, Christianity again. You respect the way of their land, don't you? You move there because actually it's your decision.
Exactly. You have respect to the police and
you live by their way. That's respect, but there doesn't appear to be that here as much as maybe some would like. And I think that can be more of a broader spectrum of how maybe people see authority today in this country, because there doesn't appear to be any discipline now as to what maybe there was when we were younger. Do you know what I mean?
And the reason for that is because we didn't have wokeness as in depth as we do have it now.
Yeah, it's got stronger over the years.
And so learning curves are all over the place, but people are finding it difficult to even deal with a basic situation to get out of trouble.
Yeah, I'd agree. So there you are. So that's Wokism. That's the political spectrum of today, 2021, November 2021. That is also, what have we spoken about? We spoke about COVID. We've spoken about, have you heard about animal rebellion, Grem? That's another thing, which wasn't part of the show, but I'll just bring this subject up because it brings me to the point. Animal rebellion. Now,
in 5 minutes.
In 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, animal rebellion. Have you heard about this story?
No.
Right. So, animal rebellion. So we had the climate protesters, right?
A lovely bunch of people.
Absolutely, yes. Don't sit in roads; it's dangerous. But we've got animal protesters, and so they are individuals that want to live by a plant-based lifestyle. Some would say vegan, but they don't class it as vegan. They actually say no, a plant-based way of life, right? In respect of that means no more eating meat. Well, okay, that's again, it's always been one of those long conversations.
But they would have to have nutrients and vitamins and on top of it. They would have to have all that done.
I was just going to say that.
But they're refusing to do it, aren't they?
Because it's not plant-based. So here we are, Graham. We had the what was it called? The instinct. What was it? The Insulate Britain. See, that's another thing. Yeah. But we've got them all at the moment, Graham, and it's all part of wokeism.
It's getting so tedious now. I'm just fed up with it.
But wokeism, right? You got Insulate Britain. The leader of Insulate Britain was questioned on GB News for not insulating his own home, and yet he's out there amongst the many saying we need to insulate. We need the country to do more. And it just doesn't add up.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, get your own house in order first. They say, wouldn't you say? That's what they say. So anyway,
do yourself first before you can help others.
Absolutely. So that was what, 4 minutes, 3 minutes?
That was actually about 3 minutes and 27 seconds.
The Ben stuff is improving.
Yeah, well done, mate.
Well, I've had a pleasure.
I have as well. It does bring us to the end of the show.
It does, sadly. But again, better late than never, and we've got there.
Yeah.
It's the first time in a long time. I've enjoyed myself.
I've enjoyed myself. I wonder if the viewers would like to...
We haven't done any... I have to say, we haven't done any pointless news, though.
Oh, go on then.
We've got to do pointless news.
I was going to mention about having the theme tune played twice at the end.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Back it right up, let your neighbours hear.
Absolutely.
And if they don't like it, then send around the heavens.
Well, You've been watching a pre-recorded show of the Ben&Grem Show, November 2021. It's the first show we've had since March this year. We're back and better than ever, I'd say.
I still thought we was in October, but I realised Halloween was weeks ago.
Yeah, no, we were going to do a show on that, weren't we? That didn't happen.
Yeah, it would have been cool.
It would have been cool, but
yes,
again, we've always got next year. So, yeah, some pointless news. Are we going to go ahead with it? Yeah?
Yeah, go on.
All right.
Let's have pointless news.
I need to just let me just get to the stage of pointless
news.
Pointless news.
Right then, what we got on pointless news, Graham?
Underpants.
Okay.
Why is it that manufacturers and big companies feel the need that they have to advertise so freely in a personal area on the underpants?
Well, yeah, and Graham, on that subject, we're not talking about Calvin Klein or any of the big brand name outlets, but what we are talking about is on that arse, because you can go on Facebook now, Graham, and you can actually buy a subscription for boxers on Facebook and sign up, and they give you a free pair. I think they give you a free couple of pairs. Sure, now if I remember rightly, it's a while ago since I've done this, but they give you a free pair, and they give you a free pair of boxers, and you can pick of many different types. I mean, when I say types, I'm talking styles. As you can see here,
I mean, you can see where they position the. Oh, are these clean?
They're very clean, yeah. They're very Febrezed.
Oh, yeah,
they are.
Better.
You know, and you can get these on Facebook. You can get a free pair. And with that, you can pay a subscription and get them delivered each month.
So do you design that yourself then?
No, they have different copies or different styles.
Yeah.
All different ones. I think there's about 3 or 4 different ones. I'm not sure, but I think the first one they just send you, and then you know, it was a while ago. It was about 2 or 3 years ago.
Funny bringing up underpants because I've ordered free from Wish. Coming all the way from China.
You've ordered pants from China?
Yes.
Fair enough.
I was a bit of a mad one. I'm glad this isn't live because I spent over £55 on Wish.
Right.
Probably the items that come through aren't going to be pucker. Oh, a couple of bits.
Well, what you can do now is wish that they come a little bit quicker than a few weeks. They do take a while to come through, don't they?
I mean, I prefer it when it's not so long, but quick sometimes is just the right cup of tea.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's about all for us, isn't it? Don't let your children watch Squid Games.
Yeah.
It's not for children. Make sure they're old enough. If you haven't watched it already, please do yourself a favour and have a watch, because it's actually quite an interesting show.
Yes, you're going to love it.
But
they're going to hear that at the end, so we need to put that bit at the beginning.
It's worth a watch, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely.
Watch our show.
Yeah, so if you're going to watch this show on social media, and you are a child, then maybe watch it in a few years, because then you'll be able to watch
Squid Games. We talk about Squid Games. What is Squid Games?
I thought we'll talk about it another time, mate. It's long-winded. It's basically
so old.
It's a Korean, North Korean. No, it's not a North Korean. Southern Korean. It's Southern Korean, Graham. Producers who have created a series on Netflix. It's.
Well, I don't think I want to hear anything.
It's a 15, actually.
It's just the way you.
But you need not to watch it with children.
Right.
So stay safe.
Yeah, stay safe.
And you don't need to wear a mask, Graham.
No.
Unless you choose to do so. I would say wear a mask if you're going to be around somebody who's elderly. That's what.
Could you wear underpants instead of a mask?
You can. It's a face covering. Although no, you can't wear face coverings now. It's got to be of a certain grade now, hasn't it? You can't.
I've seen on the Wish catalogue, you know, there's a cap, and then and it's all like covered.
Yeah.
Which quite cool. I was going to wear a cap tonight actually, but yeah. Was that shadows? It is. It's my shadows. The lighting is been playing up today. Yeah. Been all right and then not. Okay, well, It's a goodbye from him.
Yeah, and from me, and him,
and from him,
and me,
and the dog.
Yeah, it's good night.
Good night. God bless everybody.
See you again soon.
Yeah.